A podcast about product management, user experience design, technology, and more. This is Product by Design. All right. Welcome back to another episode of Product by Design. We've got Kyle and Eva today. How's it going, Eva?
I feel like can I say the band is back together again after, I don't know, a month? I guess on the internet, time doesn't really exist. It just different things on a different day kind of a thing, I feel like. That's
right. Time is immaterial. It's just all.
This concept does not exist on the internet.
That's right.
But if you are a regular listener and have been following, you may notice that I've been a little bit more gone. But now happy to announce my wedding happened and everything went, I don't know, saying perfectly is kind of like braggy, it feels like, but guys, it was perfect. And so, yeah, glad that it happened and glad it's over. It was so much work. And now I feel like I have nothing going on, which is great. So happy to be back. How are you doing, Kyle?
Doing really well. So yeah, things have been good. It's good to be back talking. It has been a little longer than normal. So it's good to be back together doing our next episode. So this is exciting. And congratulations, by the way. Glad that everything went so well.
Thank you. And kind of feels weird that it was only like a couple weeks ago. Feels like it was ages ago. But I can see that in your background, your toy collection has grown.
It is.
Yep. Yeah, your Legos and teddy bear.
Yeah, we're currently working on the Ecto 1 in my office. So Ecto 1 Lego set, which has been fun. So usually we're doing that like one or two steps each weekend, like as we get some time. Oh. So it's been.
Is it a car?
It is. Yeah. The Ecto 1 is the Ghostbuster car from the movie. And it's the biggest Lego set we have done to date. But yeah, we've got the kids going. We'll pull out a couple steps and just kind of work on it. They're back in school, so we don't have as much time to be doing like Legos as we normally do. So it's been a slow process, but it's been fun. They're enjoying like having a little bit of a project that we do each weekend or something like that.
That is so. I can't think of another word, but just cute. And how many pieces are we putting together?
I think this one's like 2,300 pieces.
What? So
yeah, it's a bigger one, but it's been fun. And they just totally love it. Like my son, he is an absolute fanatic when it comes to Legos. So I feel like I'm more of like a project supervisor when it comes to it. Like I get the book out and they barely let me do anything when it comes to putting it together other than like tell them which pages they get to do and make sure that they're like just taking turns. But otherwise, like they do it all themselves. And I kind of point them in the right direction. Yeah. But it's fun.
Yeah. Like, Dad, be in your place and I'll do my job.
Yeah. Like if I get in there to try and do anything, it becomes like, hey, what are you doing, Dad? Like you need to get back in your lane, which is not touching the Legos. It's holding the book.
Yeah. Whoa. That is not your area of expertise, please.
Yeah.
Hands off.
Yeah.
That's kind of funny. I love that they are kind of like, this is our thing. You're just here to help.
Yeah. I'm there. It has been fun. They do call it like my Legos or like my Lego car, but which I find ironic. But anyway,
I love the perspective that kids have towards the world and just people. Yeah, I can't wait. One day when I have kids, I'm gonna just psychoanalyze them. This is so interesting to me. But speaking of Legos, one quick tangent real quick. Have you seen the botanical collection? I think they just launched that line.
No.
It's very, very interesting. All right, everybody listening, do a quick Googling with me real quick. Okay,
I'm checking it out. We've been looking at a ton of Lego sets, but that one I have not seen. So I'm looking at it right now.
It's the most amazing thing I've seen. And we ordered the bouquet one.
Okay.
They have a bonsai, they have a bird of paradise.
Yeah, I'm looking at the birds of paradise right now.
It's so cool. Anyways, everybody go look it up. It's pretty sweet. It's just flowers, but in Lego form.
that is
the bonsai
cool.
one is cool. The bonsai one, you can like put the flowers on like it's, in season blooming. And then you can take the flowers off when it's not.
Wow.
So yeah, if there's anyone out there looking for a gift for anyone, I don't know, who likes flowers, but not ones that die, this is a great option.
No, that is really cool. Okay. Yeah, we may have to check that one out. No, that is a lot of fun. Those look really cool.
Right. So yeah, I'm getting the bouquet one. So we'll report back.
Cool.
Whenever it arrives.
Yeah. We'll have to post like a picture of that, like once you do it.
And now I want to attempt at this segue. So speaking of Legos, there are just so many collections. I don't know. I feel like I'm feeling really rusty doing the segue.
That's a decent segue.
You see where I'm going. You see where I'm going.
I see where you're going. Yeah. So,
but okay, you do it.
Yeah, there are a lot of choices when it comes to Lego sets, and we've been having this problem. Like my kids, they're huge into Minecraft, and they have trouble with picking out like a single Lego Minecraft set because there are just like dozens and dozens of them, and it's almost a paradox of does having many choices make it easier or harder? And that's what we want to talk about, is the paradox of choice. And does having more choices make deciding easier or harder, and how that impacts some of our product decisions, because it is a real issue, not only in our decision making, but in the features that we often have in our products. So I think you can rate the segue on that one, but I think the Legos to the...
I feel like you're backtracking. No, that was good.
Yeah, the paradox of choice is really interesting. It's a super interesting topic, so I'm excited to talk about it because we've been grappling with this and talking a ton about it within our product and within our kind of our company, just because if anybody listening is familiar with what I do specifically, it's a company called Team, and we work very much with workplace management software, but it is very simple and straightforward. And there's lots of other ones, software out there that has a lot more features and complexity. And so like balancing this idea of what to do versus what to say no to is super interesting. So we'll get more into that, but let's talk a little bit more about what this idea is, the paradox of choice, and how you balance what to put into a product versus what to leave out. So with that, I don't know, Eva, do you want to give us what is, what's kind of the basic idea behind, I've said it a couple times, the paradox of choice, but what is that?
I can see people like frantically Googling right now and just like, let me just go find out right now what that is. But yeah, if you Google paradox of choice, you're going to get a lot of the topics and also studies that we're going to refer to in this episode. And of course, we're going to link everything in the show notes. But this idea, I don't think you'll be surprised to hear that it didn't first, get created or discovered in the realm of products, right? Software products. This, I would say long time ago, some psychologists probably just sat around and be like, yeah, what does that do to people? And then there's one particular study that I think a lot of people have used and in this, realm of topics, which is the what I call and have seen people call it the jam paradox, the jam test.
Yeah, the jam. Yeah.
This is probably the one that is, I would say, most popular, most known. And pardon me if I'm summarizing this study incorrectly. Let me know. Tweet at me. So, Sheena Layiger, I am so sorry if I'm saying your name wrong, from Columbia University, and Mark Lepper from Stanford University. Together, they did a study. Basically, the one of the methods that they use to test what choices do to people is by offering a different arrays of jams at different grocery store in California. I'm pretty sure it was California, where one has a much larger selection than the other, and kind of comparing the how customers will respond to the different setup, seeing 24 jams versus the other setup of 6 choices. What does that do to them? And ended up, they see that customers are much faster and much more willing to kind of purchase from the smaller array. And it's kind of interesting, right? Because sometimes people are like, no, we want to give people all the choices they want so everyone gets what they need, right? But this example is also kind of, I feel like it's very relatable. When you go to the store, you have certain things in mind. And then even when you're off track and buying snacks or whatever, right? Do you really spend an hour trying to compare all 24 options, or is it easier for you to pick from 6? And looking, from that perspective, as you can guess, like, yeah, I don't need that many choices. It's just jam, right? And similar mentality can be applied to our products. And when we offer too many things, too many features, how do our users find out, oh, okay, that's the one I need, that's not the one I need? And it takes that time. It basically increases their cognitive load to ingest all the information and then having to make a decision with much more time. And you're going to see people stalling a lot more. So that's kind of, yeah.
Yeah. And the outcome of that study is what absolutely gets me every time is where they offered the limited selection of flavors, where they offered the 6 flavors in this study versus the 24. And in the situation where they offered the 6 flavors to customers, 30% who visited came back to buy some. Whereas when they offered the selection of 24, only 3% came back to buy some. So they tracked it with like a coupon for people to come back. So basically in this study they conducted, which certainly isn't the end all be all, and there's lots to kind of dissect from it. But essentially the idea being that more choice or more options took the ultimate purchase from 30% down to 3%, just because people were so overwhelmed with choice. And I don't think that that's like, when you kind of stop to think about it, it feels like it might be a little counterintuitive, but like when we go into our lives, like we have limited cognitive resources to go and like make decisions that are difficult in just like constantly when we're presented with tons and tons of choices. And I mean, this brought to mind, like we were making a decision on not a huge purchase, but a relatively like large purchase a few months ago. And the number of options out there were just staggering. There were probably like 6 or 7 different companies that made what we were looking for, that made we were purchasing a machine for one of our businesses, and 6 or 7 different companies that each made 5 or 6 different models that you could pick from. So extrapolate that out to the dozens and dozens of different products that we could pick from. And it just became absolutely overwhelming to try and narrow it down. I did so much research to try and figure out like, all right, which of these companies should we go with? And then which of these, like what level of machine should we be getting and all of that, to the point where I literally almost gave up. Like I just kind of threw my hands in the air and was just like, I literally don't know. Like I've read every comment. I've read all of these reviews. Like it's just, I've circled back to the point where I feel like now I know everything and I literally know nothing. Like it's
Right.
just, I've gone full circle, and I can't, I have all the information, but I cannot make a decision because like it's clarified absolutely nothing for me. Whereas if it was a decision between like 5 or 6 things, you could easily, as opposed to, 60, that's a much easier decision to make, because you're not, you don't have the cognitive load of trying to go through every possible iteration of, do we need all of these options, or do we only need a few? And then price becomes a consideration because you're paying for more options versus fewer options. And, which company is the best to go with because they offer, this amount of support versus this, and people like working with this company versus this other company, and all of these different options. And as if it was just one company and here's the 5 options, or it's these 2 companies with these 3 options each. Like those are much simpler decisions to make. And we feel like, well, it's just better. You have 6 or 7 companies and they all have like their 10 options to choose from. And that feels fundamentally better just as a person. Like, yeah, more options are better. But when it comes to making the decision, it makes it so much harder, to the point where it's just like, you almost give up, which is exactly what I almost did.
And it's kind of interesting when we talk about like, then who is asking for all these features? And most of the time, and I love marketing because that's kind of my experience as a person in the workforce. I've been in marketing before, and features are great when you lay it out on a marketing, material, when you can list out individual line item of features and you can see, oh, this one comes with 20, from the marketing person's perspective. And sometimes your sales department might be the one who's putting that, mentality out there. Like the more, then I can put it in the pitch and then we can sell better. Right. But again, the amount of features, I think we're getting to it. That should not define the user experience. That should not define the quality of, your product. It's not really about the amount of features as much as we want to lay it out, on the pitch deck and say, we offer 20 versus our competitor offering 10, right? Because that at a glance to, let's say, enterprise software type, pitching situation, I can see why that's more appealing. But yeah, if at the end of the day, your product should not rely on the amount of features to survive. That's what I'm trying to say. And I also am curious too, since Kyle, you and I kind of work on very different products, and I want to kind of understand from your perspective, how does that conversation usually happen in your world, talking about features?
Yeah, we have this exact conversation and frequently about what kind of features to add, because like you said, you get these marketing lists that you put up against competitors, and we're subject to that, and most companies are, who are out competing with just the other companies in the market who are putting up similar lists that are here's our features versus the competitors' features, and we have all of these, and everybody's selecting like what they have versus others, so you can have like the more check boxes and whatever. It's interesting. There's actually, so I'll kind of circle back to your question. There was an interesting, I think about this one a lot. There's an interesting HBR article that found, it's called Defeating Feature Fatigue, and we'll link it in the show notes, that found, most people think that they will be happy with more features in the buying process. So like as a buyer, you think that, but as a user of a product, it's actually the opposite. You're happier with fewer features, but ones that are really good and really foundational to what you want. So like as purchasers, we go in looking at those lists of things, which is unfortunate because that often drives like what we're building as product teams. We're kind of building to marketing lists, oftentimes, not always, but that is often driving a lot of like our product decisions. We need this
Strategy.
because buyers want these things, and we need to be able to put it on our list, and our competitors have it on their list, and that sort of thing. Whereas actual users of our products, what they need is a really simple product that does the things that they need. And that may only include like 10 of the 40 items on that, checklist of things. And so, that's something that we think about just a lot when it comes to like workplace software, because the offering that we have as a company has always been very much about simple, easy to implement software for people to get into their offices, make reservations, and be done with it. There are many powerful platforms out there that do a lot more than we do, that take a lot more time to implement. And that's always been like the big debate, is how much more do we implement? How much more do we build in order to do more things? That takes away from kind of that experience of being very, very fast, very lightweight, and very simple to get started. And it's a hard balance, because you have competitors who can do a lot more, but they take more time to implement. They take, like, you just have to do more. So they're not as lightweight, they're not as fast, and they don't have quite the same value proposition as like we can. You can get the software, you can get in, you can move very, very quickly. It's lightweight. It doesn't do everything, but it's never meant to. And so those are constant trade-offs that we're talking about and debating, and trying to figure out, where do we want to fit exactly? And there's definitely never a right answer, but as we build new things and try and either add to the product, like it's something that I'm constantly thinking about, like what are things that we should possibly be either not adding or even cutting out, just to say like, we don't want to do this sort of thing anymore. And we should be either taking some of these things out just because they're not adding to the overall experience, or they're making it too onerous to get implemented. Or what are some of the things that are making it too onerous that we can build to take away some of that? Like that's another big thing. So anyway, features that drive forward that value proposition, if that makes sense, as opposed to like features that are just adding additional checkboxes to the list that make it like, okay, yeah, this product has these 20 features that I can select from versus this product has these 20 features. Like, which of these 20 things are more important to me? It really always comes back to, like, for me at least, what is the main thing that we're trying to do, as opposed to like how many features can we get pushed into a box? And I feel like if you're selling just on features, like you're missing out on a huge opportunity to like really sell the value and ultimately, like you could probably end up losing, just because there will always be somebody with more features than you have, and you have to really focus in on the value, especially with us. Like there will always be companies with more features than we have, just because we are not like the feature leader. We are meant to be like the simple, easy to implement. So we're not going to beat people on features.
Yeah, I like that. And then you kind of touch on like whatever we're offering should fit with kind of the overall product strategy and vision. I think that's where it's so sometimes tempting to tell your customers, tell your stakeholders, hey, we have 5 features coming in Q1. That's a really beautiful sentence too. I think a lot of people on the other side of the table, versus saying, hey, we're fixing $20 versus giving you 20 features. And that, I don't know. That's where I sometimes in meetings, I can see my product managers having that moment where, hey, listen, we have only 1 feature coming out, but we're making all the other existing functionality better. And you can kind of, feel the room kind of change a little bit, the mood kind of change. but which is unfortunate because I do think that without the education of what the product team is doing, features is one thing that I think people that, don't actually work on the product. They want features, they want more, and they think more is what we're, using to fill some gaps that we have. And even though the solution might not exist in the form of a feature, and this maybe I'm just revisiting my past meetings in the last couple of weeks, because that is kind of where we're at right now, talking about the launch that we have upcoming. And it's like, okay, do we want to really commit to all these features that we don't know if we can build, and then having everything kind of done with less confidence than less features, but higher confidence, right? That is where I think it becomes a collaboration between the product team and stakeholders, and sometimes even customers who kind of understand better what is the goal that we're trying to accomplish here.
Yep.
And it's not easy. I do understand that we can't say, oh, we have 0 features, right? Because that's when people get really nervous. But like Kyle, like you said, it's a balance for sure.
Yeah. And it's, I'll caveat all of this too with I certainly speak for myself on this podcast and not our organization. I don't know if anybody will end up listening from our teams, but it really has to be about like your overarching product vision, and that there are many great products that have many features, and stick with that as a product vision. And that can be really, really good. It not to say that having many things that fulfill a very specific need is a bad thing. But when it comes to, just simply adding more for the sake of more, that becomes a real problem. When it's not driving towards what is the problem that we're trying to solve.
Right.
And how is it that we fit into really doing that well, as opposed to, we're just going to continue to add things in order to, win this customer over here and this customer over here, as, it getting away from, for our company and organization, for example, like it's very much about the simplicity of it. And if we can continue to add things that add to the simplicity and add to the quickness, that makes a lot of sense. But if you start to add things that get away from that, then it starts to make far less sense. And so like making sure that you have that clarity of vision and clarity of strategy, so that everything you're doing is adding to it as opposed to taking away.
And I'm glad you brought up adding and taking away, because I also am a fan of the idea that, let's say, yes, we have this product vision, product strategy, and now we want to add features to align to that new direction, right? And there might be some existing features that just don't fit within that anymore. And I'm a big fan of retiring features when it doesn't work.
Yeah.
One good example, I remember, it was actually pretty recent when Twitter put out fleets, and they fairly quickly just decided this is not it. And there was a lot of people that, there were always two sides. One side that is like, we love it, don't take it away. The other side, which I think is the bigger side, the more majority that I saw, is like, what was the point of that? At least in my circle. And I personally also I didn't really like fleets. I don't know anyone that did in my circle, but anyways, so that was a really fun experiment to see them. Okay, here's a feature. Well, it didn't work. Let's shelf that. And it's expensive. And I am happy to see that people are making, choices that are expensive, but still for good longevity. So.
Yeah, that's a super great point. And you probably read my newsletter article on it. So we'll link that in the show notes. I know you're smiling because you did.
Let's leave it at that.
And it reminds me too, I mean, speaking of Legos and deleting features, there was a great article and tweet from Patrick Collison. Gosh, it was probably earlier this year on, I think it was a Nature article, and we'll have to dig it up, but it had the image of like a Lego brick building, and the idea that like if you're building a roof and you have like these Lego supports, that everybody's always constantly thinking about just adding more Legos to make it more supported, as opposed to like just taking away some Legos and dropping the building, dropping the roof down. And the idea that like we don't always have to continue to add in order to support like the overall structure. Like sometimes the best way to do it is just to subtract and to like take away things in order to get to the right thing. And like I think Fleet, we've talked about the stories like on this podcast before, and I think fleets, honestly, like stories, and in the case of Twitter, like fleets, I feel like it was a feature that made sense on their platform. Obviously it wasn't working for them because they decided to move away from it, and it's unfortunate because I think that it could have been something, but since it wasn't working, having the wherewithal to just make that decision and move away from it and focus on what was working better, which apparently is Twitter Spaces, the audio component, as opposed to like the stories component. It makes more sense. So like doing that and subtracting as opposed to like just continually adding is exactly like what we're talking about. Like don't just continue to add features, and especially like Me Too features if they're not going to add to your platform in a meaningful way.
The whole time when you're going down that path, who I just thought about?
Who?
Facebook.
Okay. I was going to say LinkedIn, but Facebook's a good one.
I think Facebook is kind of, I don't know, it has become kind of the ultimate enemy of a lot of people. They've done something really great, but Facebook right now, as I don't know, man, the navigation, you can just see there's just so much going on in there that they never fix, the core problem they have on, just Facebook as a social media platform, as a product. But right now it's almost, in my opinion, very overloaded with features that don't add to my experience. And surprised that I still have Facebook. I don't use it to post anything. I use Marketplace, which once in a while I use it. But anyways, there's just so much on there that I don't think it adds to my experience. And I think Marketplace was really the only one thing I use on there. But Facebook is the perfect example of a nuclear wasteland of features that I really am curious. Anyways, I don't want to, I feel like I often bring up Facebook and just heavily hammer on Facebook, but just too many features. Yep. And on the other hand, I really love that Netflix is really focused on doing the one thing they do best. They added what is it called? Play something, which is a really fun feature to just play something random next and next and next. Right. And I can see that being very addicting to a segment of their audience. And that feature to me makes sense for Netflix. And it's, I really love Netflix as a product.
Yep.
And Amazon too. Amazon is very focused. Amazon definitely has more features, but I think they do a good job kind of highlighting what is the recommended, options, but their navigation to those features sometimes feels chaotic, but again, nobody's doing what Facebook is doing. So I'll leave it at that.
That was a good point.
One last thing I want to bring up here to the problem is there's also this other idea of not an idea, but a law. I love laws in UX. And Hicks law. So it basically talks about the result of the paradox of choice, which is the more options you put out there, the more time. I think we kind of iterated this previously too, is that the more choices you put out there, it takes more time for anyone to consume the context and the complexity of choices that you put in front of them. And that time is definitely a cost for, users. So look into Hicks law if you're interested in knowing more of that cost.
Yeah, I think that's really good because it's kind of like a hidden cost. So you're essentially making it more expensive for users to make a decision, like when there's too many choices, and there's that choice overload, and then that cost of making a decision. And it almost comes back to understanding who each of these different types of people are, because you have you definitely have types of people who are okay, making the best types of decisions that they can. So like, in some of the research, they talk about like maximizers versus satisficers, which like the type of person who is, seeking out a maximizer, like seeking out the best possible decision, or a satisficer who's willing to seek out like a good enough decision. And understanding, do you have people, especially in your, making just like buying decisions for your product, who need to be seeking out like optimal decisions, or who can be seeking out good enough decisions. And if there's that feature overload or choice overload, like are you making it harder to for somebody who has to either explore every possible option, or who can look for good enough options and that sort of thing. So what's the decision framework that people are using to make these decisions, and are you making it harder or easier for them to make those types of decisions?
This is so interesting. And as you mentioned that problem of like, it's so difficult to make that decision. For some reason, the way you just put it reminded me of something that happened this week, where taught a workshop to photographers in Photoshop, and a lot of them have never even opened Photoshop because they are used to Lightroom. Lightroom is a much more lightweight, focused product for photographers, and makes sense, right? Even if Photoshop is so powerful with features that you can list out for days, right? And that learning curve has been, just I would say scary for a lot of people, that you just don't know what to do, because where do you start? And I was actually surprised to even hear that a lot of them are just too scared to even try, because you can do very simple things and know two features and do very simple things in Photoshop. But when you see that there are 60 buttons you can push, how do you know?
Yep.
Anyways, so yeah.
That's a great call out. All right. So I guess with all of that in mind, how can we avoid creating this choice overload within some of our products and within like what we're building and what we're doing?
Yeah. If you don't mind, I'm going to jump in and say what I mentioned earlier. Definitely retire features that no longer fit your, product strategy or business strategy and vision, because they're just going to add to the mix and cost your users, the response time and also their experience. And it's just not worth it. If it doesn't fit, just retire, leave it.
Yeah.
That's my first one.
Yeah, I think that's great. And so I think that goes very well with having like a very clear vision of what you're trying to do. So understanding who you are as either a product or a company, and building towards that, and understanding like the problem that you're solving, the users and customers that you're solving for, and just being very clear on the vision and strategy and direction of what you're doing, so that you can say yes to the right things and then say no to the wrong things. And like you said, cut the things that, shouldn't be there. So requests that are coming in that are just like, this doesn't fit, you can say no to. Yeah. And then things that you already have that, shouldn't be there, you can start making cuts to as well, and just get them out so that you have a very concise and clean and focused either product or business or feature that is meant to do the thing that it is meant to do, as opposed to try and do everything.
I agree. And also having that clear vision helps you to align expectations with stakeholders and say, well, we don't want, to push out 20 features because 15 of them don't fit with the strategy or vision that we both agree upon. And I think that through that lens, it's a lot easier to have that conversation about cutting features than usually people are reasonable. I have been in meetings where they're like, yeah, okay, you're right. It doesn't fit with the vision that we both, know that's the goal, versus we're cutting features. And then you have to dive into an hour-long conversation about each of them. No, let's talk about a vision. And that should give you the guardrails that you need.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And then another thing that we found helpful too is like just in time, either displaying of features or, just in time, like tips and things like that. So rather than, try and show features all at the same time, or, show like, here's everything that you can do, or here's all the features that we have, like, here is what you need when you need it. And, kind of bring people in slowly. So not necessarily, giving users everything all at once, and not even giving them all the options all at once, but, we did this a little while ago with one of the products that we had, was not even showing them, here's everything that you can do, but like giving them different paths to walk down. So like, we, at one point we were giving them like multiple options to select from. And we found that for a lot of people just to be overwhelming. And I think we may have talked about this at one point, but we decided to slim it down to just 2. Like, you can do this option or this option. And then from there, it kind of branched off. So like if you selected B, then you got, 2 other options. But it simplified the decision path so that people could decide like, okay, I'm either on my own or I want help. Like, those were the 2 options. Yep. And then like, okay, you want some help. Here's like the different levels of help that we offer, as opposed to like, I'm on my own. I want a little bit of help. I want a lot of help. Like all of these different options were like, well, I'm not sure like what levels I want right here. So as opposed to having like 4 or 5 things, it was like, no, I'm good, or I want help, and like simplifying the process so people could make easier decisions and help get them to like the spot they needed faster, as opposed to like overwhelm them with a whole bunch of decisions right up front. Because we saw a drop off at that point where it's like, I'm not sure exactly what I want to do here, so I'm going to come back to it, and people would leave, as opposed to like, okay, just decide one thing, here it's just this one choice, between A and B, and then you can go forward. And that kept people moving forward better.
Yeah, I like that. It's kind of like making it less overwhelming to go through all these different options, different features. And then when you're designing pathways that matches what users are looking for, and bundling certain things, decisions, or whatever, features together after they have the ability to say, well, I'm looking for this. And then you can just eliminate a lot of the options that they already don't need up front. That's a really, really good point. Good idea. And I think that kind of reminds me of another tool that I'm sighing because I really want to put this in my product. But anyways, progressive onboarding, or even onboarding in general. And and because I work on internal products, so sometimes they rely on training versus putting onboarding experience in the product. Anyways, so, but yeah, and during onboarding experience, definitely that education to highlight features that are more relevant to what most of the users that you have, what they actually look for, what they actually do in your product, that definitely will help to make it less overwhelming for new users. And also they can first understand your core features and then feel more comfortable to explore after.
Yeah. Yep.
And I like what you said about just in time too.
Yeah. And I'd say finally for me, probably like the last thing, and I recommend this all the time, is just like periodically just take a step back and like rethink everything. and just figure out like, is your product in the right spot? Like, do you have the right vision and strategy? And are you still aligned with it? Like, are your features still aligned?
Love
like,
it.
should you be cutting things? And just, if you were to start over, like, is this what it would look like? And things. I'm a big fan of maybe not like total chaos, but just like injecting a little bit of chaos into it, and like taking a step back and saying, like, if we were to just either restart or just rethink this thing, is this where we would be, or would we be somewhere different? And it could even be just a thought exercise, but hopefully it gets like some questions going, and gets you on the right path to either the right vision and strategy, or to cutting features and requests and things like that. Because a lot of times we can get just stuck in the weeds of what we're doing, and we really need to just take a step back and figure out, like, are we still on the right path? Are we doing the right things? And if not, do we need to hit like a bigger reset and just say, this is, we're going to do some big changes, or some significant changes, or even some small changes, and just do it, and either blow a few things up and just change the way you're doing things, or stop doing things that you were doing. But I think that it's all right to like inject a little bit of chaos into the process to make sure that you're doing the right things, if you haven't taken a step back in a while.
I like that. That was very zen. I
Yeah.
like the way you just put that. Yeah. And what I was thinking too is that in order to really take a step back to look at the problems that you're trying to solve, or make sure that your features you're proposing match with your product vision or strategy, I like sketching it out and kind of basically going back to almost like a paper prototype to look at, okay, this is what it looks like if we have these features. This is what the other version looks like, and put it out there and see, oh, okay, I see why you're saying that 30 features all listed out is not a good idea. Or, occupying the navigation is not a good idea, like Facebook. Anyways, I think communicating through visual tools is sometimes, it just helps you to kind of make the problem more tangible too.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Cool. All right. Any other thoughts?
No, my cat just mailed, and that caught me off guard. But yeah, I think out of all the ideas and problems that we've gone through, I just want to summarize everything we've talked about. Basically, just don't junk up your product. You don't want to be building Howl's Moving Castle. It's cute in a movie, but you don't want to overwhelm your users by too many options that some of them might not be what they're looking for, or don't even know how to start using your product when there are too many options in front of your users.
Yeah. Yep.
And make sure you have a clear product vision to align, everything you're doing in the product to that. I feel like that was a very oversimplifying summary, but just don't do more, do less, but do better. How about that? That's a better summary.
That's a great summary. Less but better.
Thank you.
All right.
So yeah, do you want to do our product shout out or product gripe?
Yeah. Shout outs and gripes. All right.
All right.
What do you have this week?
It's kind of a in between, not a shout out, not a gripe. So I think I've been thinking a lot about Photoshop because of the workshop I just taught, but kind of a shout out for people that know what to do with it, and a gripe for everyone else who don't know what to do with it. Because I didn't realize the learning curve of Photoshop is so steep until I started that workshop, and then everyone's asking questions. I'm like, oh, you're right. Like, I think in recent years, if you have, been in Photoshop here and there, you notice, in recent years, they try to put a lot more upfront and say, hey, this is a project you can do. Hey, did you know you can do this? And when now you hover on the sidebar options, they actually pop a little thing out with animation to show you what it can do. But 4 or 5 years ago, I really can't remember exact time when they put those in, but 4 or 5 years ago, it was just kind of like, okay, you get in, this is it. And out of all the tools, you just basically have to Google everything. And if you know what a couple of them do, then great. You may or may not use the other 30 features in there. So anyways, I didn't realize that until that workshop. And then it was a great, kind of taking a step back, just me working on products, seeing that exact problem that we've talked about, right? Just how do you take care of users that have been around for 10 years versus users that have never used it? And for me, like I've been in there for, about 10 years, but then I still know that I have 20 things I don't know what they're for. They're just so many features and options and just checkboxes. And a lot of them are hidden too. And for example, like if you hit options, just anytime in Photoshop, if you have a adjustment or whatever that you're doing, or even when you're adding a new layer, when you hold down option, you might end up getting a different functionality that you don't get without hitting option. But how would anybody know? And again, it's very esoteric, so it's like shout out for it being so powerful. But to me, a gripe when you are not helping anyone else to get in to it. Because I think it's kind of funny where we talk about Adobe Creative Suite and people joke about designers immediately, people think about Photoshop. And then, but at the same time, like a lot of people work in the creative fields don't use Photoshop because of that crazy learning curve.
Yeah. Yep.
So anyways, that's, I guess, more gripe than shout out. Sorry, Adobe. I do love it though.
Yeah, I totally hear you. Super powerful tools. We use Illustrator a ton, and you can do so much with it, but they're really, really difficult. Like the learning curve is steep to actually get up and understand. Once you do, like you can do a ton with it, but man, I haven't used Photoshop as much recently. Like I'm probably with some of those other people. Like I'm more of a Lightroom person. Used to use Photoshop for everything. Until it was like, Lightroom is a much lighter way. I'm just going to start using that and then stop using Photoshop because it's like, I don't need everything in Photoshop. So anyway.
Yeah. It's funny because I don't know how to use Lightroom.
Yeah. I didn't either. Yeah. I was like, but I was just doing everything in Photoshop for like editing, and you can do a lot more. But then I was like, most of the stuff I can probably do in Lightroom. And so I like learned Lightroom and I was like, yeah, most of my stuff I could just, like it's a faster workflow if you're just doing like editing for like simple editing for photos. So, and
man, Kyle, you're opening a floodgate.
Yeah,
because this is another problem that I have. More gripe. So I don't know why, but their interface also are very different. Like going from Photoshop to Lightroom, it's a whole new world. And there's no connectivity between the features or just the navigation at all. And it's not just between Photoshop and Lightroom, right? It's also like Photoshop and Illustrator. Their hotkeys are different, but they can be doing the exact same thing. And I don't know, man. It's just all around. There's a lot that you can do, but you have to know exactly what you're doing in each of them to know how to basically translate your own knowledge in another software, even though you kind of know Illustrator can do this thing.
Yep.
After coming out of Photoshop or after, going from Photoshop to Lightroom. Anyways, it's,
this is
a lot.
This is probably like a whole episode on like integrating products into a portfolio, like after, because I don't know, I'd have to look up the history, but I feel like these are probably a lot of them acquired. Like Adobe acquired a bunch of them and then like started to integrate them into their portfolio. And so they've done a good job as far as like look and feel across a bunch of them. Some of them are still a little bit out there, but then like the hotkeys, like you were saying, like historically have been different across a bunch of them. And that's, I know, a pain point for a lot of users. Like if you try and go between different applications, like they're just different. So
yeah.
Anyways,
earlier I said Photoshop kind of in a funny tone, but Photoshop just kind of grinds my gear.
Yeah.
Is that? Yep. So that was a really long one. What about you? Do you have a shout out or are you angry?
Well, so I'll do one of each. So shout out, we'll do a quick shout out to Lego. So we've been just doing a ton of Lego kits and stuff, like some smaller ones for the kids. They enjoy doing like on their own. And we had a piece break. And yeah, it was sad. It was like the wheel of a carriage, a Cinderella carriage. I actually have it over here. And my daughter came in and she's like, this wheel broke. And I was like, oh no. And so I was like, crap, what am I going to do? I'm going to have to like fix this and glue it. And like it broke pretty good. And I was like, all right, I'm going to have to like pop this back in and super glue it. And I was like, I wonder if we can just get a new one somehow. So I got on like Lego's website and it just like pulled up the kit and the Lego wheel. And it's just like, do you want a new one? And I was like, yeah, I do. And they're like, all right, just put in your address and I'll send you a new one. And it's like shipped already. And it's like in the mail. And so it'll be here like in a few days. And I was like,
wow.
And my daughter was like super happy. She's like, oh, we'll just get a new one. I was like, yeah, it'll be here in a few days. That's it. And so I didn't realize how easy that was. So shout out to Lego for making the process of getting new Legos like super easy. I feel like I had heard that somewhere, but I haven't used it until now when this wheel broke. And anyway, so that was cool. super cool, super simple. Makes me like the kits aren't cheap, but the fact that you can like replace parts easily and get like a new one and they'll just like ship it out to you like super fast makes it, I don't know, just makes you like rest easy that, you know, if you lose something or something happens, like it's not a big deal because you'll just get a new one real fast. So like that a lot.
Yeah. And sometimes, I mean, I imagine you guys also went through the moment of you're like, well, is that easy? Like other companies don't just send you a replacement. I mean, a lot of them do, but that's not what you expect just because that's not a lot of companies want to do for some reason.
And not make it like super easy of just like click the part, put in your address and like you're good to go. So anyway.
That's so cool.
Yeah, that was cool. And then gripe. This is not necessarily a product gripe, but just gripe. Yeah, gripe to wildfires. We had one start burning last night, super close, and it was awful. And there was ash everywhere and smoke all over the city. So you can posted a picture on Twitter. You can check that out. But it was terrible. It was like we had a whole bunch of people close to us like evacuating and stuff because it was
wow, really?
Yeah, it was burning. The wind shifted pretty bad too. So it was kind of blowing away and then started blowing towards like a neighborhood where we used to live. So they were all evacuating up in our old neighborhood. We weren't evacuating, but we hanging out in the terrible smoke until a thunderstorm came in and just blew all of the smoke out. And then it started raining and I think mostly put the fire out. So it was super strange weather, but so I guess shout out to the rain and gripe to forest fires, or wildfires, which just totally suck. And it was a terrible night. Yeah. Anyway,
I'm so
boo
sorry.
forest fires. Yeah. Boo wildfires.
Oh man, it's so crazy. It is seriously everywhere now.
Yeah.
I mean, we're in a desert, but at the same time, it's scary to hear that it got so close to you guys.
Yeah. Yeah. Super close. Way the closest that I think we've ever been to one. And it was just out west of us and west of a bunch of people that we know and friends and whatnot. So we drove out to it because we went outside and we're like, that looks really close, like closer than so we got in the car and we're like, we need to figure out how close this is exactly. And so we drove out to where we could see it better. We're like, yeah, that is uncomfortably close. And
how close are we talking?
the tail of it. So we were at the very end of it, and it stretched for miles north of us. So we were at the very, very end of it. It was probably, I don't know, maybe about a mile away.
That's too close.
Yeah. But then it was a lot closer to other people. Like well, maybe I'll post some more pictures on Twitter, but it was basically just a miles stretch from our city up north, just kind of a line. And there's just neighborhoods running all up that same line. Anyway, it was bad. The smoke was terrible too.
Yeah, glad to hear you guys are okay, and also timely for the rain to put it out, I'm hoping.
Super timely. I don't know what else would have. It seemed like we were kind of I don't know what was going on, but it seemed like we were kind of at a loss as to what to do about it other than like watch it burn. So if it wasn't for the rain, I don't know what was going to happen. So I'm glad it did rain.
We need more rain.
Yeah, seriously.
Less fire, more rain.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys are okay, and hopefully everyone in your neighborhood is also okay.
Yep.
And no more fire, please.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that's the show.
That's it. And good to be back.
Yep.
And thanks for listening. Goodbye.
See ya. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app. You can find out more about us and our podcast on our website at productbydesign.co. You can also follow us on Twitter at prodbydesign. That's at prod_by_design. You can follow me on Twitter at Kyle Larry Evans. And you can also find Eva on Twitter at Yan Chow Chow. See you next time.